Hey, everybody. Welcome to Written and Watched, where we read a book and then we talk about the book and then we watch a movie and then talk about the movie. So today with me is Laughing Briar, who is an author and does her own kind of stuff through a magic pen, apparently. So do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your magic pen?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Laughing Briar here. You can just call me Briar. This part's the laughing. I do a lot of comedy and science fiction short stories, but I've got a debut novel that's coming out in, the Kickstarter kicks off on the 10th of this month. So that's very exciting for me. And it's a comedy sci-fi following a common sense officer as she tries to keep her crew alive in an uncommon universe.
A common sense officer. That sounds like the Time Variance Authority kind of weirdness. Is it in that kind of a vein, or what's a common sense officer?
So exactly what it sounds like. You there with the tentacle monster that you, for some reason, want to bring on the ship. Let's not do that. Let's put it in a box. Let's isolate it. Let's throw it in the incinerator. But she has a gambling problem. So it's kind of like whenever she's bet anything, she kind of has to go with it. Minor spoilers, because I want to address this concern. There is like the prologue is basically like if she actually didn't have a gambling problem, it's like, hey, do you gamble? And she's like, nah. And it's like the end. And then it moves on to the story where it's like, but she does have a problem.
Nice. How long is your Kickstarter going to be running for?
30 days. So
okay, perfect. So this
10th.
is when this goes live, the Kickstarter will also be live, right? Because it goes on the 9th. Yeah. So when this goes live, go check out the Kickstarter. It's live now. We'll have links in the description and the show notes for you guys. So you can go right to it. And also to Laughing Briar's website, where all of her other stuff is there and available. And you can follow her newsletter and her Twitter and all of her socials and see what's happening. Yeah.
It's a good time. Okay. Come on over.
So this week we're talking about The Iron Giant, which I have never read this before. I knew it was a book, mostly because I'd seen the movie when I was younger. So tell me why you went, hey, Iron Giant's the one to do. Let's dive into that and specifically jump into the text of the book.
Sure. So part of it was I was just kind of feeling nostalgic. The Iron Giant, there was a lot of stuff coming up on my feeds around just those old 90s movies like Treasure Planet and Atlantis, and the Iron Giant's in that category of animation that I really loved and just didn't get enough love back to be continued, which I was really sad about. And they did such an amazing job, like just really bringing in the characters. And I remember loving it so much. Yeah, so I wanted to tie into that. Plus, there's a lot of humor in it, and I resonate with that.
Have you ever read the book before this?
No, I've never read the book before
perfect.
this.
Because neither had I.
I was coming fresh.
I was purely a movie guy for this, and so coming into the book, this book was a roller coaster of like not just 90s stuff, but like 80s stuff for me, because I was born in the 70s. So I hit the 80s, and that's when I kind of transitioned to reading books like this. Mm-hmm. And I never read it at the time. And it's right in that super weird bunch of books that came out of like late 60s. You know, I think about Phantom Tollbooth, the Choose Your Own Adventure stuff, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is that time. Like there's this weird surrealness to children's books, where I feel like now there's a lot more, even if they're fantasy, they have like this grounded realism to them where they're trying to be a rational text. And so that said, will you kind of hit the high points of the plot of the book itself?
It's interesting. It's almost written kind of like folklore, kind of like, the old legends you'd share around the campfire or like with your peers in a small community, like caution, beware the Iron Giant. It might come and eat your trucks type thing.
Well, it has that in the open, right? So the open is nobody knew where it came from. Nobody knew what it was. And then there's like a series of it. Crash, it did this. And then crash, it did this. And it has a very lyrical quality in that, it's super weird and compelling, but also unusual format.
Yeah, I ended up, I don't know if you want to talk about the author separately. I did look him up.
We can talk about him now. So just so everybody knows, it was written in 1968 by a guy named Ted Hughes. It was originally called The Iron Man in England, and then it came over to the U.S. and they changed it to The Iron Giant because Iron Man was a comic book, and so there was a problem there. And at first, I thought they changed it like they changed Harry Potter from Philosopher's Stone to the Sorcerer's Stone. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, Americans are too dumb to know what a philosopher is. They don't know what giants are. They just, so that's that. And Ted Hughes, you want to talk about him a little bit? I don't know much about him, like at all, except he's British.
I just did like a cursory review of him. Born in like 1930, made it up to about 1988 or so. But he actually was a poet. So you mentioned kind of a lyrical quality to the prose. And I think that's definitely influenced by his poetry.
That makes sense.
He also was like married to Sylvia Plath.
What?
Yeah, he was married to Sylvia Plath, and there's a lot of people that blame him for his infidelity that ended up leading to her death. So like her headstone got vandalized where they like cut off the Hughes and stuff. So it's wow, this is interesting. Did not know any of that going in.
God, I feel like they could turn that story into a new Bridgerton or something and just be like, "No, we're going to deal with the Hugheses."
Exactly.
Now I'm thinking of it. In the book, the kid's name isn't the same as in the movie, right? It's not Hogarth Hughes. Or is it?
I think it is. I think it's the same. So I think he named it after himself somewhat.
Yeah, Hogarth Hughes.
Self-insert.
Oh,
but he put himself into a character that, like, I will say, because it's got that folklore quality, none of the characters feel really fleshed out, one of those.
So this is something interesting that I was talking about with my girlfriend the other day, because she's reading Wrinkle in Time for the first time. She hasn't read it, and it's like her first time reading it, and she missed that just because it's it was written in the 60s, so it's a little weird. And we were talking about it, and she goes, "You know what? There's this kind of weirdness about Meg. There's this weird kind of, it doesn't feel like she has all her agency." We started talking about it, and we go, okay, well, it's written in the late 60s, and it's written with all that cultural baggage attached, even though it's going through the Cultural Revolution, even though that stuff is happening with women's liberation. And I went back and I looked at that, the one I mentioned earlier, Phantom Tollbooth, and then Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and some other stuff. And there's this space in a lot of them where they don't do a lot of internal voice for the children's books. It's very, then they did this, then they felt this, then they did this, instead of kind of diving into that and going, this was a reflection of the thing that happened with grandma, and there was this other thing that she didn't have and there's a strange part of the voice in some of these older children's novels where it almost doesn't have a theory of mind. It's more omniscient narrator tells you what's happening.
Yeah. And I think, or sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Because I think we're going to say the same thing.
Maybe. I was thinking that the things that were able to get published back then, it was a much more narrow funnel. And the amount of competition you had was way less because there was so much more of a barrier to entry to publication. Yeah. So you didn't have to have those stories that immediately catch the reader and prevent them from going away. Because nowadays, everybody has access to be able to publish. And the barrier to get your works between the artist and the audience is so like veil thin. But there's so much content. Making your work stand out is that much harder. So whereas before you could have that, like, I don't really want to write this scene. I just need to get through this like little exposition and explain to the reader what's going on in a concise manner. You could do that then. Nowadays, I feel like you can't get away with that as easily unless you're like, I love Brandon Sanderson. Darling, his Way of Kings. I don't think I could have gotten away with that. Like if I'd have brought that to a publisher, but he can, because he can prove that he can deal with that ending. So Yeah,
So
you get the idea.
yeah, it's interesting because I hadn't thought about like the barriers to entry back then. I was watching Jon Stewart talk about comedians now and how he didn't like some of the structure that HBO put around his show or Apple put around his show. And that's part of why he went back and stopped and then did the Daily Show. And Jon Stewart said, now we're like the old guard of comedy. Anything that's on TV that has a writer's room is doing kind of a encyclopedia comedy take where they're just kind of catching at the back end. All of the funniest stuff, and this is his take, all the funniest stuff is happening in a basement somewhere in Toledo. It's recorded and on the internet 9 seconds after the joke is made. So that same thing happening with publishing right now is fascinating because I never thought about like the whole, to get published, you had to have existing relationships with with a publishing house. Like they weren't just putting out, everybody gets published.
Yeah, it was much, much more difficult to get your work out there. I mean, you can look at Frank Herbert's Dune. I think he got that published through like a car magazine publisher, which is just wild to me. But like that was what the steps he took to get that book published is really cool.
Well, it was Stephen King was publishing most of his stuff in like Playboy. Like that was where a lot of his short stories got published. Yeah, that was where he got a lot of his early checks before Carrie landed, and then Carrie landed, and then he could do whatever he wanted.
Golden boy.
Yeah. So that's an interesting take. So with that said, the plot does kind of go, there's this big iron giant running around in the woods and it's eating everybody's stuff that's metal. And they go, hey, how do we stop this thing? And they dig a giant hole and put like something metal on top of it to try and lure him in. And he never shows up. And then Hogarth Hughes is out one day and he's like, oh, there's the Iron Giant. And wait, they do lure him in. They lure him in and then they bury him. And then
Hughes, I think Hogarth is the one to lure him in though. Like specifically.
Is he? Okay. Yeah, like with a car, I think.
What was it? Was it a car or a bike?
Something like that. Yeah. So Hogarth. Oh, here it is. Wait.
So the self-insert author character is the one that catches the giant.
Yeah. But Hogarth had an idea. In his pocket, among other things, he had a long nail and a knife. He took these out. Did he dare? His idea frightened him. In the silent dusk, he tapped the nail and the knife blade together. Clink, clink, clink. And he lures him over and dumps him in the hole. And then they bury him.
Yeah.
They huddle him together with bulldozers and shovels and just bury him.
I love that. I love that it's this group of farmers who are just like come together like, well, the government's not going to help, so we're just going to take care of this ourselves.
We'll bury it.
It's like, that actually tracks. I know enough farmers.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then they build a big old park on him and like, I don't know if you got this in yours.
Yeah. Those are the animations, or not the animations, the illustrations from the reprint in like the 80s. But they're great. Yeah. They're fantastic edition. Andrew, I forgot his name. Dang it. I'm being really bad at keeping track of my stuff. Here's my Wikipedia page. It is Andrew Davidson. So reprinted in 1985 with illustrations by Andrew Davidson, and they won the Kurt Maskler Award for it.
Nice.
So British work of imagination for children. Okay, so then they bury him. He digs his way back out. And this is when Hogarth learns how to communicate with him, and they become friends, and they lure him into the town dump, and they just bring him all the stuff to the dump. And so instead of having a dump that gets full of rusty cars, he hangs out and eats all the rusty cars and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we have the second resolution. So they bury him as resolution 1. They get him in there as resolution 2. And then they have a new problem. Do you want to talk about this? Because this is so insane. I had no idea this was coming.
All right, let's talk about the stars on Orion's belt and the space dragon / angel / demon thing that comes out of that.
Angel, demon, bat dragon.
Angel, demon, bat dragon. Because that makes sense. And this is where it went full folklore for me.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that this thing, I love the presentation of it, of like there's something coming and it keeps getting bigger and the star keeps getting bigger and it's like moving in closer and people are just like starting to sweat like, oh, what is this? And then just like random bat dragon angel
Like comes out of it, almost like it arrived on the star or it hatched out of it. I don't know which way you go with it, but one of those.
Something like that. And it lands on Earth, I think in Australia.
And it covers Australia. Each of its eyes is as big as Switzerland. Like this is bigger than the moon. Like it's so crazy how big they made it. And this is the realism thing I was talking about, because you can't have something that big not affect the tides, the moon, the Earth itself.
The very
all of a sudden you have a 3-body problem.
Also, just like imagine something that size careening into the Earth and knocking it out of orbit. Like I kind of want the XKCD on this. Like, what's the math?
That would be great.
That would be so good. Somebody send a suggestion to them.
That would be great. So it's so big too that people in Australia are walking around underneath it. It's so big that it covers the valleys, and they're walking around under the new darkness, living their lives. And they're like, we're in the dark. And the military comes and everybody tries to kill it, and nobody can kill it. And then I think to your folklore point, the last bit is the most folklorish kind of trickstery bit in the whole thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Where the Iron Giant and the dragon, angel, bat creature come in and have a face-off, which honestly also feels a little bit like a kid just holding two toys and just like mashing them together.
It's like Time Bandits at the very end when it's just a bunch of stuff on the kid's floor.
Yes. It was so like delightful though. And it's a challenge between them because the giant is actually much smaller, even though giant to us, tiny to this dragon creature that like with a stomp of its foot can make a kid fall off a bicycle on the opposite side of the world.
Yeah.
Like, wild. And he challenges him to like, how is it phrased? Like, if I defeat you, if I prove I am stronger than you, you'll be my slave, which is like such a kid thing to do.
Such a kid thing to do. You got to do what I say until you go home tonight.
Yeah. And the dragon's just like, you can't beat me. So sure, I'm mature and from another world. I got this.
And it has that Loki Anansi kind of trickster thing where it's like, I'm going to beat the brawn with a little bit of brain. But he fell in a hole when someone knocked a knife and a nail together. He's super clever now.
There's a character inconsistency. Also, he can talk now. Didn't have that problem before. Like, couldn't communicate before, but like maybe he was learning letters in the junkyard, just like A.
Nut and bolt. No.
None.
All he can spell is taxi because it's on all the doors. TAXI. I got this.
That would have been pretty clutch if he'd have just like taken a taxi to go fight this dragon.
So the challenge is, go ahead.
Sure. So the challenge ends up being like who can withstand the most heat. So they take all this fuel, all the engineers on Earth, like come and pour diesel fuel over the giant on this big iron bed, and they just light him on fire. And because he's metal, he just keeps glowing hotter and hotter until he's like white hot. Which they don't go into temperatures. So there's like,
they don't really go into like the functional internals of him either. Is he a silicon-based life form? Is he like some kind of computer? Is he just all gears and levers? Or is there some kind of like motivating entity like a golem and he's just has the word of Ka under his, like it's so but it doesn't matter for the story. It's so weird. It reduces it. Go ahead.
If we assume he truly is made of iron and we look up like the melting point, it was at least 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit that this guy, like maybe right below that, that this iron giant suffers through until he's white hot. Yeah.
And then the dragon's like, there's no fire big enough on Earth to do the same for me. And the iron giant's like, ha, gotcha. Go lay on the sun for 30 seconds.
And he does.
He does. He's like, well, I said I would.
I was like, oh, I can't be proven I was a coward. That would be bad.
Oh, It's so simplistic. I love how simple it is and how much it just kind of assumes. I think your take on it being a kid playing with stuff, it's 100% in that world.
Yeah. Do you want to know what the temperature of the surface of the sun is?
Oh, it's like 2,800 Kelvin. It's like insane.
So it's like not even fair.
Yeah. What is it? Do you have it up there? Like
I
a million
do. I've got
degrees?
it at like it's 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not apples to apples here. This dragon got completely screwed. But he was an evil dragon that was going to eat everybody. So, you don't feel really bad for him.
Well, here's how dumb the dragon is. The dragon goes up and does it for 30 seconds, and he takes it. But he's like, ooh, that really hurt because I'm like a thing made of flesh. And he comes back. He's like, ha ha, I beat you. The Iron Giant then goes, oh, wait, I'm going to do it again. Yeah. And he gets on, and they pour oil again, and they make him hotter. They do it for like a minute. He's like, all right, dragon, your turn now.
I need to rewrite the ending of my story, clearly. Like, I did not come up with this level of complexity.
You need a battle of wits on this level.
So
then the dragon goes. Oh, go ahead.
No. Keep going.
The dragon goes and does it again for like a minute. He's like, oh, my God, I'm so wiped out. Oh, that hurts so bad. He's like, ha, now I got you. The Iron Giant goes, and he climbs on the iron thing, and they burn him for the third time. This time, he can barely handle it at like minute and a half, whatever he does. One of his ears melts off. He missed an ear. And then he gets off. He's like, your turn.
I'm fine. I Van Gogh'd this.
And the dragon's like, I can't do it again. I guess I have to be your slave. And
that was it.
And that's it. And he's the slave. And he flies behind the sun and sings a song that makes people be nice to each other.
Yeah. He literally brings about world peace at the end of the story.
Yep.
Through song, which is just like top tier.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the story. The whole thing is so bizarre and not at all what I was expecting. I expected some of the stuff they have in the movie, maybe some of the other things going on, like the conflict between individuality and military. I knew it was happening written in the shadow of Vietnam. So I'm like, okay, some of that's going to come in here. No. Even the military is the most simplistic. We line up all our stuff and we shoot at it. It didn't work. We have no other options.
It really was. They just kind of gave up on Australia.
That was our best plan. What do we do?
Oh, no.
But I do think that this text is cool because it does fit into that transitional children's literature where you go from the kindergarten C spot run books to the basic picture books like Mike Mulligan's Steam Shovel, and then you start getting more like Wind in the Willows and kind of here's what the animals do when you're not looking. And then there has to be that transition to start fleshing out your science fiction and fantasy understanding. And I think this sits in that space. And for that, it's great. I don't think that as an adult, it's a hard read or a challenging read. But what I think it is it's a remnant of when you start to learn how to think about literature differently than just straight accounts. And that's where I think it kind of slots in.
I like that take on it. Yeah,
because it's fun. I mean, it's like, but it's not for us. Although it can be for us. If you're like, it'd be fun to sit around at like a bar and be like, guys. Okay, we're gonna take turns reading chapters of this, and if you laugh, you take a shot. If you don't believe something, you take a shot. I'd be
toasted by the end of that night.
Get a bar obliterato with a child's book.
All right, new podcast / show idea.
Yeah. We'll just do that when we do one of these live. We'll be all right, guys.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
We're gonna do it live. What I did like about coming to this book, though, too, was it really did pull me back into thinking about all those. And in thinking about those, I was reminded of Choose Your Own Adventure. Did you read those?
I did.
Those were amazing. And those were so much fun for me. Although I was one of the kids that would hold my finger at the last choice and then look ahead. And if I died, I'd go back and choose something else. But if I didn't die, I'd keep going.
Oh, I was not that wise.
Oh, no?
I just died over and over again and be like, but I love this choice the best. Why does it always
Guess I'll
end
start
poorly for
again.
me? Yeah.
For anybody that doesn't know, Choose Your Own Adventures was a series of books where they'd have like an introductory scenario. It's one of the few series of books that was ever written in the second person. So everything says you do this and then you do that. And then you turn around and you see this. You can either, and then it has like 3 choices. And depending on which choice you choose, it tells you what page to turn to, which is a really cool way to set up like branching fiction, which we have all over the place now in video games and stuff. But back then it was practical and in a book. And those were just churned out. And because they were churned out, they had bizarre setups, bizarre scenarios, and it was very bizarre to read, which is where this kind of comes in, where I feel like this could be, it's like they took one path through a Choose Your Own Adventure book and went, oh, it's a book now.
Yeah, it could feel it. I definitely could see that because it does have that little disjointed. It almost comes off as like short story-esque too, like an almost anthology setup of like, here's one short story, here's another one, here's a third.
So the original title, right? The original title was The Iron Man, a children's story in 5 nights. So it was broken up as 5 codas. And it has 5 chapters, and I didn't realize that reading it, but they do very much read in that kind of a space. I think they're called, let me pull the chapter list up. Come on. I don't want to change the brightness. There we go. So it has The Coming of the Iron Giant, which is when it shows up and they figure out how to trap it. The Return of the Iron Giant, which is where it comes out of the ground and Hogarth makes friends with it. What's to be done with the Iron Giant, when they put it in the junkyard and teach it how to eat random metal. The Space Being and the Iron Giant, which is Angel, Bat, Demon, Dragon.
Yep.
And then the last part is the Iron Giant's Challenge. And each one's about 15 to 20 pages, and they zip right through, and I could see it being read over a week, which is a convenient way for a library book or something to borrow for a kid. Like, it's in that space. It almost feels built for it.
It probably is. And maybe it'd be more fair to compare this to modern Children's Day books versus modern fiction in like the classical sense.
So I have nephews who are both in college. I have a great nephew who is very young. So I don't know what a children's book in the like 8 to 12 range would be. What is that? I mean, I
remember growing up on like the Magic Tree House, where it's like these kids with this tree house that would travel around in space and time. Yeah. And that was fascinating to me. Actually, I would say that's part of the reason I have a love of reading is my mom would read these books to me. I don't know how I would have taken this story at that age. Because again, the competition's just different. Yeah. It's also, again, frame it for that poetry side of it instead of that prose side. And maybe there's something more to it there.
The poetry angle is interesting. I almost want to read it again with the poetry stuff in mind, or read other of the Hughes stuff that is pure poetry, because I haven't read any of his poetry. Yeah. So
likewise,
interesting take. So what else? So the Magic Tree House.
Oh yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to recall. I grew up on that, Harry Potter, but I wasn't reading them myself. I had them read to me when I was young. A little bit of The Hobbit, which honestly, that age, not quite the right book for you. At least not for me. And then there was a lot of Penguin Random House short story books. And I don't remember any of those stories. So they didn't leave the impression on me like that these other books did. And I don't know if this story would fall into that category of, would it have left an impression on me that would have made me like inspired to look at science fiction, or would it have been something I just forget about growing up?
So there was one I was thinking about while you were saying that. Sorry, I'm going to jump in for just a second, but and in that the short story one, that's one of the biggest places that I got most of my reading in that period of time. My mom was a teacher and taught elementary, and so she'd bring home all this stuff. And one of the ones was there's a children's book library, and so the library has like natural history, and then some stuff that's like, actual history. And then there's ones that are compendiums of children's stories. But one of the weirdest ones that was in there, it had Oscar Wilde's The Selfish Giant. And that one I remember reading when I was super young when I read it, and you read it and it's a Christ parable, and you come out the other end going, the hell? What was that? That's not Sunday. And I think that would probably have been the closest thing I can think of in narrative form to this, because the dragon coming out of the sky and the challenge is very much in the, hey, we're going to play in the giant's yard and mess with him. And then we become friends with him. And because we became friends with him, when he dies, Jesus shows up and he's got wounds and stigmata. It's like, what's going on, buddy?
Make friends. When they die, Jesus comes out.
Yeah. But that, and then for the Hobbit thing that you mentioned. So when I was around, definitely in this age, so probably 10, 11, 12, I was reading the Black Cauldron series, like Terran Wanderer. Oh, yeah. And I think that's like a primer just after this. Like, I feel like if you go again, Sea Spot Run, Mike Mulligan's Steam Shovel, stuff like Where the Wild Thing's At, and then you transition to fewer pictures in the picture book. You can slot this in there, and then you can easily transition from this to Terran Wanderer and be like, okay, I kind of get what is happening. It's just weird and it doesn't need explanation because it's magic. Yeah. And then you can get to like The Hobbit and eventually Tolkien and then Sanderson and just graduate up. So you have like this pipeline to just funnel children directly into Brandon Sanderson and R.R. Martin, just right to them.
It all comes through the Iron Giant pipeline.
That's right. The Iron Pipeline.
That's part 6.
Part 6, the Iron Pipeline. I wouldn't be surprised if he wrote one, because he did write the Iron Woman and like the Iron. There's like 4 Iron something books. Why are you?
You're kidding? There's an Iron Woman book too.
Yep. The Iron Man, the Iron Giant. Where are you, Ted? If I just click on Ted, it should show me all of his books, and then career, Death of Sylvia Plath. There she is. Themes. I should have read up more on him, but I did not. The Iron Giant. Short story prose books for children. Here we go. The Iron Giant, the Iron Woman. I guess that's it. I thought there was more.
I mean, he missed an opportunity. The Iron Dog. I would have read that book.
I would have read the Iron Dog. And then, you have the team up, the Iron Family.
Yeah.
Then you have the Iron Kid.
Yeah.
Hogarth Hughes ascends.
Delivered by an Iron Stork.
Rental space. I'm down. We've got multiverse capability here.
It's
the
true.
Iron Loki, the Iron Thor. Just drop everybody in.
It's just everybody's Iron. Iron Thanos.
Iron Thanos. That's really hard. They're like, go sit on the sun.
Snap Iron Fingers. Yeah. Why didn't Team America? Or not Team America.
Is it a snap or is it a katang?
I think it is a katang at that point.
He katangs. Oh. Okay, so I guess what we're saying is this does have a place. It's actually, if you've got kids and you want to read it to them for like bedtime, this is a great like borrow from the library, even the e-library, just because it's so easy to kind of do it night by night and put it out there, which is great. That's a fantastic kind of piece of literature. But understand that after this, this is like marijuana. This is the gateway iron. This is going to get them right into fantasy or sci-fi.
This is how it goes.
Maybe not hard sci-fi, but definitely.
I'd read a dragon book after this, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe Aragorn is next.
Could be.
Be Aragorn.
Gateway to Aragorn.
You can go to Smog if you have a really precocious child. You just take them right into. All right, so this is the third age, and we're going to talk about Numenor. Let's do this. Just push them on the Silmarillion. You're like
Silmarillion. Yeah, yes.
Enjoy.
Good luck, kids.
I don't know what an elf is. Read your book.
Read your book and be happy.
Mommy's in a court of thorn and roses. Why don't I get wine when I read? Here's milk and cookies. Read your Silmarillion.
Read your Cimarron and be happy. Gonna be a great mom.
Okay, that's it. Let's pile over back to the book. I think it's a short read too. It's pretty quick. I think I read it in an afternoon. Just kind of sat down and plowed through it. Mm-hmm. And I floated in the pool and read a weird children's book. It was a very strange day.
That sounds lovely, actually.
It was great. I was just confused. My girlfriend kept asking what I was laughing at. It's like, there's a dragon in it now. It's just showing up. On fire, and the dragon here now. I don't know why.
Can we discuss really quickly that the dragon came out of a star?
Yeah.
But it can't handle the temperature of the sun.
Oh, good point. That's... I don't... I hadn't thought about how logically inconsistent that is, but that is grotesquely inconsistent. Well, okay, then here's the question. Was it actually a star?
Maybe not.
Because if a star gets close enough in the sky that it's bigger than Jupiter, wouldn't that kind of mess the whole solar system up?
There's a lot of things we're not going to discuss. This is folklore.
Pluto's gone. Uranus is gone. The Kuiper Belt's gone.
The real reason Pluto's no longer a planet was this dragon came by and just knocked it out.
You also then have this idea of the dragon drives around in a star like it's his little car. He's just time to go to the next planet over. Let's turn it on.
I so want that fan art for this book. Just beep beep. It's a bug.
Dragon in the star car.
Star car dragon.
There was a book I read when I was super young, and it was my potty training book. And it was called Dragon in a Wagon. And it was all rhymes. It was Dr. Seussy kind of stuff. But it wasn't Dr. Seuss, but it was Dragon in a Wagon. But now I want Dragon in a Star Car.
I mean, I would poop to that book. I would learn.
I'm convinced.
You got me, sir.
I wasn't until now.
Is there a rating scale for this?
Yeah, one of your books is called Number 2. It's the porcelain. Yeah, you make that joke. So you're all in on potty jokes.
I do. I
got to find it. Where is it?
I have 2 short story collections. They're currently out of print because I'm going to revamp the stories and do them individually. But I created Porcelain Reads, small stories for small bladders, which is basically a flash fiction thing. And I have all sorts of little either sci-fi or fantasy short stories interwoven in there. Because I did 52 short stories in a year. So one per week.
Nice.
And then I took the best of those and I put them in the book. So you'll notice there's only about 25 in that book.
We want the dumps.
Oh.
But then your second one is called The Porcelain Reader Number 2, which is a great joke.
Oh, I aim for the classics. Why stray?
Just hit them right where they're going to laugh at it. Solid.
Well, I published those books as a completely unpublished, unknown author. So I was I want to find my audience. And I knew where my audience was. And it was
in the bathroom.
Porcelain throne. And that, sir, is where the real readers sit.
No, it's true. My mom got this Uncle John's bathroom reader, and it's this thing, but they're all super short. They're 3 or 4 pages. But if I sat down and I started reading something, I'd finish it. And so when I was, I remember doing this when I was 10, 11, 12. But my grandparents had the Reader's Digest. And so I went in not knowing that they're not short stories. I'd sit down and I'd start reading something. I'm and I'm reading an excerpt from a book. And 15 pages later, my legs are asleep. I'm all done. I'm dry in the bottom. Oh, crap.
The problem is when you sit with your knees on your knees, your elbows on your knees.
In the bathroom.
Very carefully.
I hope so.
Yeah, you put your elbows on your knees and you cut off the blood pressure, and then you're just sitting like this, focused on the book. 30 minutes later, you emerge from the bathrooms with the Febreze spraying around you. I know more than I ever did before.
I've gained the forbidden knowledge, and all it cost me was too many burritos. And then you have so many arguments to get into.
To get through the Samarillion.
Yeah. It's not a one day.
That's not one burrito. That's a lot
it's
of
a
burritos.
year's worth of Flash. That's so much turkey, so much tryptophan.
I have to appreciate that you've delved down the poop joke route with me.
I don't know if delve is the right word. We're definitely mining these deposits now.
It just like flushed the normal conversation away.
Yeah, this is the benefit of having two boy nephews growing up. Their poor mother.
Delightful.
She was ganged up on by those two and my brother-in-law just all day. So yeah, the repertoire is deep.
I have 5 nephews.
It's a lot.
And 2 nieces. It's a lot. It's a fun family. The get-togethers are really fun.
Good. That's what it's about. Now you can tell them about, oh, you know what? Speaking of that, what if the dragon has to go to the bathroom? Is it like shit a new Tasmania?
I think Tasmania is fucked. I'm sorry.
It's all of a sudden it's majestic. It has these giant mountains. It's the new Mordor.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh, that's Mount Doom, all right.
Oh,
we don't go there. You don't want to put the ring there.
No.
This ring's bigger than the others. I don't understand.
Beautiful. The finest critique, sir.
Yeah, quality discussion of the Iron Giant. Yes. Oh, well, what about that too? What's his digestive tract like since he's eating metal all day long? Does he not and just get bigger? That's what I think.
Nothing is addressed about his interiors.
No.
So I presume he is solid metal and just alive for some reason.
So Golem, super unsub
wired silicon giant.
Yeah, true. Because that would not work out on the fire at all.
No, that's silicon. Yeah. Like we can look up the melting point, but I think he would have been screwed.
Yeah,
lost more than a year.
Because all that's soldered together, so that's real.
What if he came out of it just like a solid lump, like forged by the fire? He's just an ingot at the end of it. He's
waddling like the iron or the TikTok or the Tin Man in Return to Oz. Just dink, 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 dink. All y'all can.
Yes.
That'd be great. I want to see Iron Giant play TikTok or play. God, I got TikTok in my head now. That's Stephen King. That's Dark Tower. But I want to see the Iron Giant as the Tin Man in The Wiz. That's my hope for him. That's next we'll see him.
That's his next book.
Yeah.
Part 7.
Yeah. Part 7. The Iron musical. Iron Giant the musical.
Ooh. It's got to have a tap sequence. Has to have a tap sequence.
No, it's got to be a whole stomp sequence where it's like all the different percussion things, banging the trash cans, but it's him. Yeah.
I'm down for this.
We've done it.
Come on, Hollywood, get
claiming
on
rights. Claiming rights. Come to us. I think that we can continue to mine the Iron Giant for more jokes, but let's save that for discussions of the movie, shall we?
I think that sounds great.
Perfect. Briar, do you want to tell them where they can find you? Again,
sure.
Just give them plug your pluggables.
Absolutely. More than happy to share. You can look me up at laughingbriarbooks.com. That's my website. I'm also on all the socials. If you look up Laughing Briar, you will find me at them. Just a reminder, I have a Kickstarter running. That's starting October 10th. So if you are interested in comedy sci-fi with sprinklings of romance, go check that out. I think that's about it.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. I'm Justin, and this has been a great time reading The Iron Giant. Next week, we're going to talk about the movie itself, and that will be something else because the movie has so much more complexity than the book did in terms of text. So we should have all new poop jokes for you then. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.